All right, Sweaty Fantasy Football Podcast, episode number 12. I'm Justin. Zach is with me today. Lots of training camp news. We're into our second week of training camp. We're going to buzz right past the news, and we're just going to do a mock draft today. We're approaching almost 1 month until kickoff, which is crazy. So it's time to do some mock drafting, see how ADP has shifted since last time we mocked, and yeah, it's gonna be a great time.
I'm excited. This is my first mock since the last time we were live doing a mock. I still need to really hammer out some of my rankings and everything, but this should be a good exercise.
Alrighty, I will share draft board.
It's
All right,
beautiful.
draft
You
board is
ready?
up. Yep, I've got the 11th pick. Zach has the 6th pick. See what happens. It's gonna be
Let's
a good
run it.
time. I enjoy all right. Massive shocks here. Saquon, Jamar, Bijan, Jefferson, Neighbors off the clock, off the draft board to start.
Interesting
Any
run out.
surprises there?
Um, I think you see, I don't know if I see any surprises there. Neighbors went pretty high, but I'm totally okay with that. Worth talking about Jefferson. Worth talking about the hamstring. I personally will be moving him down my board a little bit. I'm probably taking, like, I had him probably in my top two, but I'll probably move Bijan and Saquon ahead of him because of the hamstring news. Not that I think that it's going to be a big deal. I just think that the odds of him getting injured this year probably go up just a little bit, and that's valuable. You know that's something to think about when you are making the pick that you're going to hinge your season on. Me personally, I'm going to be going with Amon Ra here. That's who I was hoping would be there for me. I think that the pass rate could rise in Detroit. I think that. Yes, they lost Ben Johnson, but I think that that's not really going to affect his target share. And I can see the pass rate going up, meaning more meaningful targets for him and just more overall volume.
I would agree with that. So after Amon Ra goes CeeDee Lamb at the 107. 107 seems like a steal for CeeDee Lamb to me. I think if I'm drafting from the seventh spot and CeeDee Lamb somehow falls to me, I'm absolutely ecstatic. And then Puka, Jahmyr Gibbs, Henry, and to me there's a pretty clear pick here. Um, he's a player that if you're, I guess my philosophy is when I'm drafting to win. And to me, the player that you're, if you're drafting to win, the player here is Christian McCaffrey. Um, if he doesn't come back very well off of his injury, you could see a season where the wheels have fallen off. You could also see a season pretty easily where he is the number one overall running back. And to me, that's a pretty high upside that I just can't pass up at the 111. You don't really have very many players like that at the back of the first that you think are going to be the top guys. Those guys tend to go towards the front of the first round. So after the 111, Bowers and Brian Thomas Jr. go next. So this is kind of where team build gets interesting to think about. I could either go really high T, grab another running back. Um, Bowers going off the board. I'm not going to draft Trey McBride this high personally. Um, let's see. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the upside of Genty. Genty as a running back too. Grabbing him at the top of the second round is pretty awesome to me. I think there's some good upside, and I think I could have two of the top five running backs. You could also see a season breaking wrong where both of these guys aren't good. The Raiders aren't a very good offense, and McCaffrey gets hurt again, and they're not good picks. But we'll see what going two running backs to start off the draft does for me. So after Genty goes Achan, Nico, AJ Brown, Drake London, and Zach is back on the clock.
I love the McCaffrey pick. McCaffrey is going to be on the board everywhere for me this draft season. You know what I mean? If I don't feel like I'm getting one of those top receivers, like I think if CeeDee Lamb and Amon Ra were off the board before me, like let's say I'm picking at nine, yeah, I would have been picking. I probably would have been picking Christian McCaffrey there. I think he's a great pick. I do, however, really like going wide receiver early because I'm already looking at the wide receivers. This year, I definitely like playing a little bit more of a zero RB build. Running backs have really been pushed up the board. Um, because of last season, and I think that you can get some good value with wide receivers early. I also just in terms of this year where my rankings are kind of shaking themselves out. I do think I like some of the late running backs more than I like some of the late wide receivers. I feel like there's some handcuff value late, some sleeper value late, especially coming off the draft that we're coming off of. So really like getting my wide receivers early because right now I'm already looking at the top wide receiver being Lad McConkey, who I love as a player. I just don't know if I'm really hinging a fantasy season on him being my wide receiver one. And for that reason, he probably is my top wide receiver on the board here. I am actually going to dip into running back and get a little bit of balance here, just because Chase Brown's on the board, and I think that
Perfect.
of the players who are left here, I think he's one of the guys that could end up finishing as the overall RB1. We talked about him last time we did a mock draft. He was going a lot lower, and I got him at a much better value. But I still feel really good about having Chase Brown as my RB1.
Yeah, it's a great pick. I love Chase Brown here in the second round. Like you said, it balances you out. We'll see how the later rounds shake out.
Absolutely. I am back on the clock here. And man, these 12 team drafts really can dry up quickly on you. I'm
Oh
not
man.
extremely excited with anything I'm seeing here in the wide receiver room. And even the running backs, you're looking at James Cook, who's kind of in a contract dispute, Brees Hall, who's had a lot of committee concerns. What I'm going to do here, it's a little bit of a reach up the board, but not a dramatic one. I'm going to take George Kittle. George Kittle it goes right after Trey McBride here in this draft. I think he's the last opportunity that I'll have to have an elite edge at tight end, and I think that that's important in a league. Is if you're not going to be completely punting the position, it's cool to take an edge over some of the people in your league.
Yeah. No, it's a great pick because he wouldn't be coming back to you in the fourth round. So he's the kind of player that if you want, um, I mean, we've talked about Kittle a lot. You obviously know I'm really high on Kittle, so my guess is you probably didn't think you'd make it past me at 402 because I'm very comfortable taking him in the fourth round. So that's kind of a know who you're drafting with type situation. Um, but yeah, in the third round, I definitely don't mind it, especially the news came out Jawan Jennings dealing with a calf injury. Is that contract related? I don't know, but he's dealing with a calf injury that he was already dealing with through OTAs. Um, After Kittle goes Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall, T. Higgins, Jaden Daniels. Are you surprised at all to see Lamar, Josh, and Jaden all gone before the end of the third round?
I'm not shocked. No, it's not the way that I like to play fantasy football. I am a late round QB kind of guy. I'm not shocked by it. I don't even fault it that high. It's not the way I like to play, but I'm not looking at these teams thinking I'm getting a competitive advantage simply based on this position. It's just I think that there's a better value with taking some of the later guys and hoping they leap into this tier than spending elite capital to get into that tier.
So already I'm seeing an issue with the way that this draft is going. Going two running backs early makes me really feel like I can't go running back here. And I have Alvin Kamara in a tier of his own. Like he's a great value being left here. He's gonna get peppered with targets, but I don't feel like I can take Alvin Kamara and go three running backs in a row. That would just be a little bit too rich for me. So I think what I'm gonna do here. And this is also the issue because the top rated receiver here for me is Marv. And going into a season with Marv as your wide receiver one, that's really tough to look at. At tight end, I'm not really looking at anybody. Kittle, he's the last of a tier for me too. So I'd be looking at Laporta, Hawkinson. Not really. I mean, I could go Joe Burrow, but I mean going through three rounds and not having a receiver. That would be tough. And coming back so quick, I feel like I have a couple receivers here that I like and probably could get. So I'm gonna go Marv. After that, Mike Evans and James Cook go. So I'm back on the clock. Um, I mean Kamara's still available. You know, I think I'm gonna go Hampton. I'm gonna go Marion Hampton. I think I like that pick, even though it's my third running back, and I'm gonna be scrounging for receivers as time goes on, as time goes on through this draft. Hampton in the fourth round, I think he's probably gonna keep climbing, but I think it's too good of a value to pass up, even though I might be lacking at the receiver position.
Yeah, I can't fault you for that. You're going to be putting all these guys on the field at the same time, and it really gives you just such a high floor to be rolling in with Genty, McCaffrey, and Hampton. That is a mouth-watering lineup right there. I really love it. I think that you might be hurting a little bit for wide receiver, but I personally feel like there's some wide receivers coming up on the board, and maybe the next maybe a round or two after this. And that's actually why I feel comfortable looking at running back here. I look at all of these wide receivers. I think they're all in the same tier. And I think there are some wide receivers that still exist in these tier in about 2 rounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Kenneth Walker here. I'm a huge fan
Love
of
it.
Kenneth Walker's talent. I think that he is very comfortably a top 10 running back in the league this year. I think that Clint Kubiak raises the floor for what the run game in that offense can be. And I think as far as ceiling goes for Walker, he is explosive. He is a pass catcher. He's an injury concern, and that's absolutely worth thinking about. Um, but when he's injured, I'm not starting him. You know what I mean? That sounds a little redundant to say, but he's not going. He's not going to kill my season in the fourth round the way maybe a Jefferson. I'll move him down a couple spots because if I lose my first round pick for 6 games, I'm screwed. But he's my RB2. I think again he could easily finish as an RB1 this season, and I'm really excited what he brings on a week to week basis. So I'm going to take Kenneth Walker here.
In Hampton, Marv, Jamison Williams, and Jalen Waddle. To me, it's pretty clear. Um, my quarterback. Oh man, I think I need to load up at wide receiver. That's kind of where I'm leaning here. Is I need to solidify my wide receiver room. So I'm gonna make a very unsexy pick and hope that the calf injury is simply contract related. And I'm gonna pull the trigger on Jawan Jennings here. I think he has solid flex value for at least the first few weeks of the season. Um, Bo Nix just went. He would have been a quarterback that was in consideration because I need to start looking at my onesies. I feel better about my wide receiver room now that I have Jawan, but I'm basically done taking running backs. So, kind of what jumps out to me, tight end. I mean, I don't really like any of Mark Andrews, Jonnu, Evan Ingram, Njoku. I'll probably play the game and try to take Tyler Warren or Loveland just to try to take the shot on maybe hitting on the next rookie tight end. But I think I probably go back to the wide receiver room. A player that I've been looking at quite a bit here is Jaden Reed. If you have an IR, I think Brandon Ayuk. I mean, in the eighth round, you're still looking at good pieces, but I think now that I have my starting lineup filled out, Jaden Reed is a player that we've seen boom. Like we've seen him have some absolutely massive games in the past. And I think going into what year are we going into with Jaden Reed? I think it's year three.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going into year three. He's 25 years old. I'm not a very big Matthew Golden fan. Love being hurt, really, really, really hurt. Jaden Reed, if you looked at his blow up, he blew up in week one with Jordan Love, and then their pass rate went way down. They kind of nerfed the offense. Um, I'm betting on a massive offensive rebound from the Packers, and this also gives me a potential Jordan Love stack later. That stacking isn't as big of a deal in redraft, but I think Jaden Reed is the pick here to me. After Reed went Mark Andrews, Debo, Stephon Diggs, Brian Robinson, and Zach is back on the clock in the eighth round.
All right, I'm looking up the board a little bit, and I think I'm going to be doing a little bit of reaching with my next two picks. The first one for me, I'm definitely swinging for the fences a little bit now that I've solidified my wide receiver room. I look at my running back room, and it doesn't feel as great as it did when I had made 4 picks and I had a lot to go. I've used 3 picks in a row at wide receiver, and I'm starting to feel a little bit light in the running back room. I am reaching up around. I expect both of these guys to be there in the next round, but I can't afford to lose. Um, One, Zach Charbonnet. He will not be my pick right now. I'll let him come back around to me. But Jordan Mason is somebody. who I believe, if Aaron Jones goes down, could be extremely valuable. He's someone who's explosive enough and athletic enough to really take advantage of a good situation. And I think that his situation in Minnesota is amazing. What with what they've done with the interior of the offensive line, just how sharp that offensive calling staff is. I really like Jordan Mason this year. He's a little bit of a discount DeAndre Swift to me, but with a higher floor, I think. I feel like having him as my three makes me feel really good about my room.
Yeah,
Starts
great
to go
pick.
back around. We got Cooper Cup off the board, Jonnu Smith, Matthew Golden, Evan Ingram, Brandon Ayuk goes, Najee Harris, the Pirate goes, Jared Goff, Cam Scattaboo, Javante Williams, David Njoku, and then again, I am going to have to click Zach Charbonnet here. I took Kenneth Walker. There's some risk involved with that. A lot of the things about the scheme that I talked about for Kenneth Walker apply to Zach Charbonnet if Kenneth goes down. Um, and we have proof of concept of Zach Charbonnet being very valuable when Kenneth Walker's not playing. I feels like I've made a lot of floor plays for this team, but I feel very good about the team I'm building so far, playing in Week 14 this year and having a shot. So I'll look to chase some upside later in the draft.
100%. I like Charbonnet because there's guys that you project to be the backup, and then there's those guys. There's Charbonnet, Algier, those guys that you know if the starter goes down that they're just going to be their replacement bell cow. And I mean, Charbonnet might even be good enough that there's almost 0% chance that Kenneth Walker plays a full season. I would bet a lot of money that he misses at least one game here or there. He might not have like a season-ending injury, but I think it's a pretty good chance that he misses time throughout the season. I'm going to stick true to my word. I'm not going to go running back. I went three running backs off the jump, and I've just been going wide receiver, which I think if you have a build like this where Marv is your one, JMO's your two, you're pretty much in a position where you just need to shotgun wide receivers for the rest of the draft and then fill everything else out. One wide receiver who I think is going to be who's going to be going up significantly, and I could see him going maybe in the seventh, or I don't think he'll sneak into the sixth, but in the seventh round is Emeka Egbuka. I think by the time that drafts roll around, depending on the news with Chris Godwin, if the news with Chris Godwin isn't great, or if, I mean, one of the pieces of news that we didn't talk about was Chris Godwin had a second procedure done on his ankle. Um, the drafting of Egbuka kind of says that they might not be fully bought in on going into the season, rolling back with Godwin and Evans. So to me, Egbuka is a great pick here. He fills out my team very well. Loveland, okay, that stinks. I was hoping for either Loveland or Warren. I probably could have taken Loveland and then Egbuka on the way back. So right now, tight ends. It's looking full. Dalton Kincaid, Tucker Kraft, Jake Ferguson, Kyle Pitts. Now that's a name. I don't know. I honestly don't know of another name that has underwhelmed this many years. He's going into year four right now. Like he has underwhelmed and somehow he gets hyped up every single offseason. And I mean, are you in on Pitts this year? Is this the year finally?
I won't say I'm in. I will say that I have no problem with him being drafted where he is, and I like it. It's kind of like a tradition, you know what I mean? It's fun, you know. It's watching
Yep.
A Wonderful Life with your mom every year on Christmas. It's not your favorite movie, but it's cute when it comes around every year. People are getting in on Kyle Pitts.
There you go. Yeah, you kind of know what time of year it is when the Kyle Pitts hype starts building. You're like, all right, the season's just around the corner.
We've been
So
getting
this,
memes of this for 2 years, and we're doing it again. I love it. I
I
love it so
know,
much.
I know the people that say I'm back in again. It's like, well, you must not have been one of those unlucky people that drafted Kyle Pitts last year. Um, I don't know this off the top of my head. Do you know where he got to in ADP last year?
I do not. No idea.
Anyways, way too high. Wherever it was way too high. So here,
Certainly.
I'm gonna take Jordan Love. I think. I think the Packers offense bounces back in a big way, and I think that Jordan Love is going to be a great fantasy quarterback this year.
I'm totally okay with that pick. Going one pick ahead of Kyler Murray is funny. It's not what I would have expected from you. You roster Kyler Murray in Dynasty still, if I'm not mistaken.
Both.
Yeah. in both, and he has a little bit more of that rushing upside that you fit. Like Jordan Love is truly a pure pocket passer. He does not scramble. He does not take design runs. He will not add anything on the ground. So you really need an outlier touchdown season from him to really return. But I mean, in the 10th round, I'm totally okay with it. It's just interesting. Not something I would have expected to see from you.
Just
Uh,
diversifying a little bit.
I'm sizing up to get my quarterback soon. I am going to wait one more round just because of who is still on the board. If I get sniped, it's not the end of the world. It's not a huge drop, but I do think I want to take another round of ADP value, honestly. Not that I'm really looking at anyone at the top of the board. Not, no one's really jumping out at me. I still do feel like I want to be taking bites at the apple of RB here. And it dries up pretty quick. I could take Trey Benson. I have a feeling you really want Trey Benson, and I could take him and really be a Debbie Downer today. I don't know how in on that
Well,
I am. I can't
I
let him
need to
if
take a
he
tight
passes
end.
me. If he passes me, I'll never get him. And I do like Trey Benson this year. I just don't know if I like him that much. I am going to filter by running backs because I want to take a look at what's here. And Trey Benson is the most exciting on the board. I do think I should be trying to play the ADP game a little bit here. I'm looking at Drake May. When Drake May comes back around, he's the guy. I love Drake May. There's nobody at wide receiver. Josh Downs is interesting. He's at the top of the board. He would be an ADP value at this point. That could be fun. I guess that's the choice right now. Do I make a full reach on Trey Benson? Do I take my quarterback, or do I take Josh Downs? Icky. That's kind of icky. I am going to lock in Josh Downs. I'm going to take ADP value here. Um, Kind of a gross time to do it. He goes one pick before Michael Pittman. That's funny. We're getting to a gross part of the board. Nothing I'm really super excited about here, in all honesty.
Dak in the 11th is that's a great value. I love that.
Dak being on the board was one of the reasons I did not take Drake May. I'll be taking Drake May now because he's been the best quarterback on the board for a while now, in my opinion. I'm mega high on Drake May. What he gives you on the ground is amazing. I think that he's someone who will be getting picked much closer to the Baker Mayfields and the Bo Nixes and the Justin Herberts this time next year.
Well, I don't know if you saw that, but I got sniped on my Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts went,
No.
I know.
You better write that man a thank you card.
I don't I don't know what I'm gonna do with myself. This is kind of where drafting with a computer is hard because I don't see this many teams taking a tight end too. I mean, you got team one took Laporta and Ferguson. Team eight took Hawkinson and Warren. Team nine, Kelsey and Goddard. Like if Andrews and Pitts for team 10. Oh, and team 12. So a little bit, uh, about half the draft. If you're taking Bowers, you're not taking Loveland in the 10th round. That's just asinine team building.
we uh
So
we can make the name of this episode Justin Tilts in round 11. Is this the
that's
last round
a
of our draft?
it
Did we
is.
set it up for? Oh wow, man, this is a big pick for you here.
I know.
You
Well,
got to pick tight end. Oh man, I didn't
I
even
know.
realize.
I know. That's what I was saying. When you were saying you were going to snipe Benson, I was thinking, well, I'm not going to take Benson anyways. So what I'm looking at Isaiah Likely, yuck. Zach Ertz, yuck.
He rolled
Hinter,
up on his ankle and got carted off today. Likely did.
I saw that.
Big blow for Likely today.
I saw that. Not a good play for Likely. That does kind of bump Mark Andrews there a little bit. There's really no, if he's out to start the season, their wide receiver core is pretty weak. There's really no heir apparent waiting in the wings there with Likely out.
You should let me get a celebrity shot here. I know who you should draft.
Who should I draft?
I think you should draft Mason Taylor. That would be
Ye-
my pick here if I were you. You're
All
reaching
right.
way down the board, but it is our last pick in the draft. I think he has just as good a shot as anyone else on the board to be to be a tight end one, to be a difference making tight end this year. He's the a very clear path to the number two target in New York. Justin Fields can use a tight end. We've seen it before. We know that first read quarterbacks like Justin Fields like their tight ends. And he's one of those guys where, you know what, if he doesn't hit just like any other quarterback on the board, you're streaming the position. You will know right away if Mason Taylor is going to be anything this year, and you can get right into streaming, maybe in a way that you couldn't with some of the other tight ends that were there. This is a little iffy because this is the last round of our draft. Maybe not the true way we would have played it if we drafted out a full bench, but I really like Mason Taylor there.
Yeah, I still hold firm that there's no way that six teams draft two tight ends. That's absurd. I would be looking at maybe like a Pitts or a Kincaid. Tucker Kraft is a guy that I like. Um, and those are the guys that you take, and then you just know going into it you're streaming. Unless Mason Taylor comes out and goes 7 for 85 and a touchdown week one, then I would play him week two. But
I think he could
barring that,
go 6 for 60, and you're starting him week 2 and feeling really good about it. Honestly, I think that would imply a decent target share. It would imply he has the role, and it would imply that he has reasonable efficiency at 10 yards a catch. You could hope the touchdowns come there. You could see an outlier season for a rookie tight end there. I really like Taylor at that spot.
yeah, I do too. And it kind of solidifies to me like you either go Bowers, McBride, or Kittle, or you punt. Like I think you grabbing Kittle at 306 is a great move because you wait around and take Hawkinson, overdraft Hawkinson or Laporta. Like to me, just the gap is so tremendously high there between Kittle and the next few guys that it's
Agree.
just
Hard
tough.
agree. Yeah,
Um,
if I didn't get Kittle there, I know that I would have been picking in this range. I would have looking like you said, Tucker Craft. I like Tucker Craft. Getting all the way down to Mason Taylor is a little scary, but I like it a lot more than taking Travis Kelsey or TJ Hawkinson, Sam Laporta, David Njoku. You know what I mean? All guys that absolutely could return and could be great, but could also just leave you in a place where you should be streaming tight end every week, but you're hanging on a little too long and taking some lumps because of it.
you want to run through your team really quick, and then we'll kind of look and see if there's any. I guess also if there's anything you regret or if there's anything you would do differently. Maybe look at that too.
Yeah, so at quarterback, I have Drake May. At wide receiver, I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, George Pickens, Chris Olave, and Rome Odunze. Josh Downs was the first man on my bench. At running back, I have Chase Brown, Kenneth Walker, and then we're going to assume bench outside of the flexes. I have Jordan Mason and Zach Charbonnet. And then at tight end, I have George Kittle. Um, I definitely kind of feel just a little weaker than I'd like to be everywhere, in all honesty. I like going with a balanced approach because I feel like it gives me flexibility in the later rounds. But you never really feel like you have a home run room when you take that approach. And I don't feel like I have that. I don't feel like I have a home run in any room here. It feels like the floor is solid. It feels like I should be a playoff team, but getting into the playoffs, I'm probably feeling really nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say there's something to be said. I mean, tight end is definitely a point of strength for your team. Going into any week, unless you're playing team 12 or team 5, you feel like you have a pretty significant 5 to 10, maybe even 15 point advantage over whoever you're playing. Like if you're lined up against me week 1 and you have Kittle and you look across the matchup and you see Mason Taylor, you're like, well, I at least have him by 15 points here.
That is a
Maybe
good
not
point.
50,
That is a
maybe
very
not
good point.
15, but I mean maybe in a full PPR, Kittle goes out and gets 2 touchdowns week 1, and Mason Taylor goes 2 for 7. I mean it's a realistic thing. I would say for your team having St. Brown as a wide receiver one really gives you a lot of flexibility to kind of hodgepodge together. Maybe Adunze has his year 2 breakout. Olave doesn't continue to get concussions. Pickens I really like in the 5th round. Downs, you got a good shot. And the scary part with your running back room, you have Charbonnet, so that kind of negates a lot of the risk with Ken Walker. Really like Chase Brown. I and then Drake May. I really like your team overall. I don't think it's as low of a ceiling as you think it is, especially with getting a quarterback in the 11th round and some high upside elsewhere on your team. I think it's a really good team.
I think if the running back room hits the high range of outcomes, if Chase Brown and Kenneth Walker can be RB1s this year, I think this team is a contender. But there is a lot of range of outcomes where I feel weak at running back all year. Any injuries in the running back room, and my season is probably just not going to be a championship season.
And that's fair. And that is why my starting running back my running back number one, Christian McCaffrey. So I have Jordan Love as my quarterback. Again, it's kind of a toss up between him and Kyler. I just kind of want to diversify, see how my team looked with Jordan Love on the front of it. I think I like Kyler more. McCaffrey and Genty at running back, Marvin Harrison, Jameson Williams, Jalen Waddle at receiver, tight end Mason Taylor. That's obviously the weakness of the team. And then bench Juwan Jennings, Jaden Reed, and Emeka Egbuka. Like I said earlier, when you have Marvin Harrison as your one, Jameson Williams as your two, you just spend the rest of your draft stocking up. And I feel like the real strength of my team is running back. Like the three pack of McCaffrey, Genty, and Hampton, assuming health, which I'm not banking on injuries for anybody at this point in the year, that is that's a positional advantage over most teams in the league. And that's something that I just love. I would say my receivers feel a little bit weak, but if Marv takes the step that I want him to, and I think he can, being the number four pick last year, I think it's a solid team as long as I can really piece my tight end together. Um, one regret. Do I have any regrets on this team? I guess maybe taking a tight end earlier. I like Kelsey's beginning of the season with Rice being out, so maybe taking him in the sixth round instead of Waddle. Then I wouldn't be looking at Mason Taylor. But you almost get into this point where if you take Kelsey, he's too big of a name to move away from, but he's not a guy that you look at and be like, oh, I need to stream the position. But to me, he's almost in the stream category this year. So I think you kind of lock yourself in, and that would hurt you a little bit. Overall, I think I like this team. The running back heavy, in my opinion, didn't really hurt my team. It gives me a positional advantage. I kind of like how this turned out.
I think if there was one thing that I would like be, and not to say I think you should have done this, but how do you think you would feel about your build if you would have instead of gone Ashton Gent? Oh, never mind. I'm looking at Brian Thomas and he went one before you. How about we say AJ Brown or Drake London there instead of Ashton Genty? What do you think about your team build if you're rolling out Christian McCaffrey and Amari Hampton as your RB1, RB2, Drake London and maybe Marvin Harrison as your wide receiver two? Do you like that better or do you like having the stacked up running back room?
I think I like that better. I think Marvin Harrison is a guy that I look at in my wide receiver two slot, and I'm really, really happy about. And I look at him in my wide receiver one slot, and I'm terrified. So I think that is a good point. I think any one of those three, Nico, AJ Brown, and Drake London, I put them in instead of Marv, and then Jameson Williams can be a flex or a bench guy. I think I love that team. And
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't feel like it takes away from the positional advantage just because of where I think Hampton's going this year. But yeah, that's a good
I
call. I
look.
really like that.
I think if I was going to do something similar, I look at being able to get Chris Olave in the sixth and Rome Odunze in the seventh. I really do like the way that that shook out for me. And I think that having them as wide receiver three and four is nice, but I still feel pretty comfortable if they were my wide receivers two and three. And I look at Travion Henderson, who went a few picks after George Pickens, and I wonder what my build would look at if that was my wide receiver two and three, and then instead of my wide receiver three being Jordan Mason, or instead of my running back three being Jordan Mason, I had my running back three be Travion Henderson. I feel like I had a much stronger running back room, and I don't think my wide receiver room would take too nasty of a hit there.
Yeah, I agree. And looking at it, because Henderson went after me too, I almost wonder like taking Drake London in the second round and then Marv and then Hampton and taking Travion instead of Jameson Williams.
Actually, I
Um,
like that a lot. I think I would like that a lot for your build.
I think that would be a beautiful team.
I
As
think that the
bank
gap between Drake London and Jamison Williams, I think it's smaller than the gap between Genty and Henderson, honestly. I could be wrong about that. There's a lot of room to be wrong about something like that when you're talking about two people where the sky is the absolute limit with Jamison Williams and Ashton Genty. And I'm much closer to the sky on Genty than I am with Jamison Williams. But you just give yourself so much ceiling already with Christian McCaffrey. You got to draft as if you're right. You have to draft as if you're going to hit on your picks. You want to be consistent with the way you build out your team. And if you draft Christian McCaffrey in the first round, you're saying, hey, I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be a top three running back this year again. And if I'm wrong, it'll probably cost me the season. I think you're okay with that when you draft him in the first round. You're okay with your season hinging on Christian McCaffrey a little bit.
Yeah, if McCaffrey makes it to the 111 in our real draft, I am smashing that button every time.
I think there's a good chance he
Um,
does.
I think there is too, unless I mean you're especially with Seahawks fans. We're going to be playing with Seahawks fans
Precisely my
this year,
point.
and
Yeah.
McCaffrey's not getting snatched up by him.
Yeah. I don't love picking at the six. I really don't.
You're kind of
I
stuck in
see
the
a
middle a
lot
little
of
bit.
outcomes where I could definitely get stuck taking someone I'm not super excited about there. If yeah, I'm not super excited about taking Gibbs there. I'm pretty nervous about Puka Nakua at cost. Even CeeDee Lamb. You said you really like CeeDee Lamb at pick 7. But if I am really excited about George Pickens, and I think that while obvious, it's so extremely obvious that CeeDee Lamb is still clearly the one and still belongs in the first round. Picking him as a top 5 wide receiver, you're hoping he still has the 15 plus target games in his range of outcomes. And I do wonder a little bit if some of that like true target hog ceiling disappears a little bit and you lose some of those spike week games because of it.
Yeah, I'm not super worried about that. If I was at the 106, I'd definitely be taking CD. But I get where
Over
you're
Amon
coming
Ra.
from. I think I would. I
Interesting.
think I'm worried about the Lions. The one thing to note with the Cowboys is they had one of their guards broke a bone in his neck. He's going to be out for I think basically the season. Tyler
No.
Guyton
It's not the season. It's four to
is
six
not.
weeks from now. Yeah, he may avoid the pup to start the season.
I thought that was Guyton
Am
because
I wrong?
Guyton was
I
Guyton was feared to tear his ACL and then
I did not.
he missed that.
Who
They
was it?
have
Was it Tyler
two.
Smith?
They have two linemen that got hurt. Tyler
Uh,
Guyton, they thought tore his ACL. He's gonna be out 4 to 6 weeks, so he might be there for the start of the season. And then
okay.
they had another guard that broke a bone in his neck, and I think is supposed to be out for at least a couple months. Um. Anyway,
I'm
so
trying to
it's
get there right now.
that's all
Cowboys
right.
neck fracture. Oh,
That's all right.
Rob Jones. Rob
Yes.
Jones. Could miss months as of a day ago. Um, Several weeks. Yeah, so I guess it doesn't really seem like we have a great timetable right now. Don't get me wrong, it's a loss to lose a guard to a neck fracture, but Rob Jones isn't as terrifying as some of the other guys it could have been. Who do you think is the better scoring offense this year? Do you think it's the Cowboys or do you think it's the Lions?
I think it's the Cowboys because of the defenses.
Wow, I think that's mega hot.
I think I think with the Lions they got there was a point where they basically had one of their 11 starters playing. Did I say Cowboys? I meant Lions.
You said
Um,
Lions, I think.
okay. But I mean, they got absolutely hosed last year on the defensive side of the ball to where they had to be in shootouts, and that showed where they were the number one offense last year. But I think their defense is going to regress. It's really, really, really good defense, and so I think they're not going to have to score a lot of points. Obviously, they lose Ben Johnson, and I just think the Cowboys defense isn't very good. They're just going to air it out with Dak and CD and George Pickens. Yeah, I think the Cowboys are the better scoring offense. And Amon-Ra St. Brown has Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs. Um, CeeDee Lamb has George Pickens, and that's pretty much it.
George Pickens is a I think the gap between, as far as talents go, I think the gap between George Pickens and Jameson Williams is bigger than the gap between Sam Laporta and Jake Ferguson. That's a big mix of pro Jake Ferguson, anti Jameson Williams, and a little bit of pro George Pickens just because of this. I think the offense is going to elevate him in the right way. I think it's close. I also want to be mega high on the Cowboys this year. I'm a huge Dak believer. I really like what they're doing. I'm thinking about trying to get a third, 3 straight weeks in a row with the fob bet on the line. I don't know if I want to put fob on it because I do want to be high on the Cowboys, but I think that the Lions just still they still have a wealth of talent, and I don't think that the defense getting better is going to hurt the offense. We don't really see that necessarily showing up in the statistics. You know what I mean? Teams with better field position, teams that earn more possessions because the defense gives them to them. Those teams tend to outperform teams with bad defenses.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. I mean that's fine. I think I would just take CD over Amon-Ra St. Brown, but it's definitely not. I'm not calling you dumb for taking St. Brown over CD Lamb. I think you could probably go either way. Neighbors at 5 seems a little bit hot to me.
I thought you were calling me stupid. That's what. No, I'm just kidding.
It was close. It was close. Um,
Neighbors is interesting too. Neighbors, I think, belongs in the conversation. I think that there's not a lot of worlds where you end up feeling stupid for that pick, and there's some where you end up feeling like a genius. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Neighbors there.
yeah, well, I think it's I'm doing my first real draft right now. It's a slow draft, and I think it's also interesting to see how much people differ from ADP because you kind of have your ADP and then people just take like 3 round swings. Where you're like, what in the world? So that's part of the fun is to kind of get a general lay of the land, your general targets, and I think we'll do probably one more mock draft before the start of the season, which is coming up in a little bit over a month. Hall of Fame game this Saturday, or this Thursday, sorry. And we got real football. It'll be Trey Lance taking the field for the Chargers.
That'll be crazy.
Oh man, maybe we'll see some Shadur Sanders. Anyways, um, yeah, that's it. Our mock draft is done, and we will see you guys next week.
See you later.